Standing on Business Podcast. I am your host, Delvin Joyce, the People's Choice. I am joined by my guy, Amani Toomer, who is also standing on business. What's going on, Amani?
I'm doing well, but I'm gonna have to fight you on that. It should be the People's Choice.
Oh.
They'll be like, what's the People's Choice? Delvin Joyce, because that like leads them on. It's the hook. You got to hook them and keep them on. To say your name and then to say the moniker afterwards, nah, I don't really like it.
You don't like that. Well, you know, what's so funny about the moniker is that, you know, when people saw that I was doing this podcast with you, they were like, yo, you're doing a podcast with well-dressed Amani Toomer. Like literally everybody knows you by that nickname. Does that like excite you? Does that bother you? How did you feel about that nickname back in the day?
It was weird because if anybody knows me, they know that I'm not a great dresser.
You're a terrible dresser, bro. I was gonna say that you are not.
Hey, Paul, wait, pump the brakes.
You are not seriously well dressed.
I admit that because it's not something that I emphasize.
Yeah,
but you went too far.
No,
I just don't pay attention to it that much. But you were to say I'm a horrible dresser. That's like, you know, I'm not a great dresser. I'll admit that. But to say I'm horrible, that's going way too far, bro. Way too far.
All right. How about this? So when I got to the Giants, you know, because obviously your nickname given to you by Chris Berman, right?
Yeah.
Well-dressed Amani Toomer. Obviously a play on Armani, which is funny, I think. So when I got there, I was expecting you, honestly, to be like this really well-dressed guy. Like I knew it had nothing to do with how you dress. I knew it had everything to do with your name, but I was still expecting you to be well-dressed. And to see you walk into the locker room with flannel shirts on literally every day, I mean, it was driving me crazy, bro. How many people call you Armani and not Amani?
A lot of people, but I just say it's Armani without the R.
Yeah. That's funny.
So then they're like, and it's funny how you see the people's brains wheels the wheels turning in people's brains.
Yes.
And they're like, Amani. And I'm like,
Amani.
Very easy.
Yeah, that's got to be a tough one, man, because people call me Devin without the L, and it drives me crazy. Like, they don't call me Delvin, they say Devin. And I have people that are close to me who know my name is Delvin, they still call me Devin, which is wild. Who do you think was the best dressed person on our team during, I guess, I can only go by the 3 years that I was with you, but who was the best dressed player on the team then?
It's a funny answer, but I'd say it's Jesse Palmer, but I'm going to say the reason why. Because when his first year he got there, he was a sweatpants guy.
Yes. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, he and Tiki's ex-wife, Jenny took him into Xenia.
Yes.
And then he threw out all his clothes, and all his clothes were by Xenia. And so he ended up being like this fashion guy.
Yeah.
Just because when he was young and impressionable, Jenny kind of took him under his wing, from what I understand.
Yeah.
And then every day he always had these great outfits on. It was crazy. But he was a sweatpants guy every day.
That is a good call, because I was literally trying to think of it as I was thinking about your nickname, well dressed. And I was like, who was the best dressed person? And back then, to your point, it was a sweatpant kind of culture. Like that was back when all the hip hop sweatpants were out, like Avarex,
Double X, Triple X,
and Nietzsche, all those different brands. Yeah. Anyway, we digress, man. This is Standing on Business, and before we get rolling, man, I want to just make sure you are locked in with Standing on Business. So if you're watching this on YouTube, like the video and drop us a comment and hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you're rocking with us, leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, because you know why? It really helps other people find us. So it's going to help this podcast grow. And we are going to grow. We're about to cook right now because we got so many topics to talk about. Listen, I know last week we said we're going to talk about the top 5, but Amani, you and I like to talk a lot. So I don't think we have enough time to get to 5 topics. Today, we're going to whittle it down to the top 3. And the one that I want to start with, Amani, is this Darien Mensah story. And I know we kind of touched on it a little bit last week, but now the new development is that Duke University is suing Darien Mensah for breach of contract, right? Like a college football kid is getting sued by his university. Big thoughts on that so far, Amani?
I think it's both necessary because it's going to teach these kids that when you sign a contract, then there are kind of repercussions. Secondly, it's going to teach kids that don't just sign everything, read the details. Make sure that you focus in on every option and have a lawyer look at the contingency plans because who know they should have thought about once signed, once Darian signed this thing, he should have said, "Hey, look, well, what happens if next year some other team offers me more money? What's my out?" And that's what he should have been thinking. And I think that's what more players are going to start thinking of.
Yeah.
And there is a buyout clause, but one of these things that we all know is that, well, first of all, Duke has had a stay and made sure all the information in this lawsuit, in terms of the details on how they sign players, they're making sure that that's going to be sealed. So you're never really know the details of the contract, which is good for Duke because that's their intellectual property on how they acquire players. I just think people need to understand these contracts more and understand what they're signing. So this is
Yeah.
it's going to move forward for everybody because now everybody's aware. Oh, this isn't just everybody kumbaya. This is real business where you need lawyers to make sure that everything is going to be legal and up to snuff. So I think it's a good thing in a sense, but I also think that it's very tricky because they're not saying you can't transfer. They're
Yeah.
not saying you can't go to another school. Whether he can play football at another school is an issue,
Yeah.
but he can go to school anywhere. But if he does go to another school, that means he can't get NIL money from another school. So that is just a weird situation in terms of how all of this is going to shake out. But I think it's necessary. All this is very necessary in college football.
Yeah, we talked about this last week about how, a lot of these agents aren't really agents. They're not attorneys. They're just some dude, right? And hopefully, and I don't know Darian Mensah's situation, so hopefully he's got like an actual agent who can represent him in this because to your point, I mean, this is a real legal battle. Like this is not hypothetical. And let's talk about how we got here, right? So obviously Darian Mensah signed a 2-year deal with Duke. He leaves Tulane, signs a 2-year NIL deal. Now, no one has actually published how much the 2-year NIL deal was worth, but it is rumored to have been $8 million over that 2 years, which is $4 million a year. And the other important distinction,
Allegedly.
allegedly, right? But the other, I guess, important distinction is that this is not a revenue sharing deal. This is an actual NIL deal, and they have that grants Duke University the exclusive licensing rights to his name, image, and likeness for 2 years. Right? They can't own it because you can't own someone's name, image, and likeness indefinitely, but they can sign a contract
Thanks
for
to the Civil Rights Act. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So they got exclusive. Yeah, exactly. But, but they have exclusive rights to his NIL, which means that he can't relicense somewhere else without breaching his contract. I mean, it's pretty simple. And by the way, I don't know if you watched any Duke football this season. I mean, I watched a couple of games. The game that I did watch, because I had a vested interest because of the impact that it had on my university and their playoff chances, I did watch the ACC championship game. And bro, he balled out in that game.
Oh, he's amazing.
Yeah,
From what I hear.
he's a baller, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think the other side of this, right, is that, obviously because he balled out, everybody's like, all right, is this guy going to go to the NFL? But on December 19th, he announced that he was going to come back to Duke, right? Which seemed kind of anticlimactic because it was like, all right, you can't go anywhere else because you signed a 2-year contract. But most people forgot that he would have an option to declare for the NFL draft. So he says, hey, I'm coming back. But then on January 20th, or I'm sorry, on January 16th, he announces that he's going into the transfer portal. And then, of course, Duke drops the lawsuit on January 20th. So a lot of moving parts, man. And I think to your point, Amani, this is the next evolution of what's going to happen in college sports. And we talked about this last week. I think you and I both agreed that we need contracts because we can't have unrestricted free agency every year. But I also think this is going to teach a lot of players a lesson that if you sign a contract, it is legally binding and you can't just up and go whenever you feel like it.
I agree with you on that. But then it's like, while you were talking, I was thinking of something else. It's like, okay, so what if he would have decided to go to the NFL? Now, the NFL, an NFL contract, they have your name, image, and likeness. So what happens to that? Does is there a clause that lets him out if he decides to go to pros, or is he obligated to come back to Duke for the name, image, and likeness part of the thing? It's just a very it's there's so many questions in this thing. I don't know. But another question. So what if he were to go to Miami, right? And Duke would have his name, image, and likeness, but he's playing for the University of Miami, right?
Right.
And then on was it January 26th is when the NIL deal runs through?
Yeah, January 2026. Yes.
Yeah, 2026 and 2026. What if Miami just backloads all his deal for that?
So here's the other thing, Amani. Like on January 21st, a judge granted a temporary restraining order blocking Mensah from enrolling at another school or signing any other deals until after a hearing that they set for February 2nd. Now, they just moved that hearing up to January 29th, but the point is he can't sign with anyone else. He can't enroll in
Oh,
college. He can't do anything because of this temporary restraining order. I mean, listen, the other point of it is that Miami's not going to bring him there to be a regular student. So it's not that he's being stopped from getting an education. He could probably just leave Duke and go get an education somewhere, but the dude wants to play football. So, and Miami's not going to bring him to University of Miami and bring his sister to University of Miami if Darian Mensah's not playing football, right? So I think that's the other side
well,
of it.
I agree with you on that, but it's like I think you have a hard sell to a judge when you're saying you have to go here, you have to stay here because we have your name, image, and likeness. They have nothing to do with him on the field. That's nothing to do with anything else. So I
Well,
don't know how they could stop him from going to school somewhere else. That really rubs me the wrong way.
Well, they're not stopping him. They're stopping him from playing football, and he's not in school if not for football, right? And so I think the other part of it is he is.
That's an assumption though. Like you don't I mean, I don't think you can stop somebody from going to school and then stop somebody from playing football when they don't really because the name, image, and likeness deal isn't has nothing to do with him playing football. It has only to do with his name, image, and likeness,
But his name, image, and
from my
likeness
understanding.
is for football. I mean, they're not showing this guy, and he doesn't have a chemistry class endorsement. Like he's
But he
not
could.
getting.
Name, image, and likeness doesn't mean like name, image, and likeness on a football field. It's just name, image, and likeness, from what I understand. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that the two are. I mean, they're associated, but I don't think they're legally binding. Associated, like the legally.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I had not considered that. His NIL extended beyond the football field, right? I mean, obviously, I think that the reason that Miami or whoever wants to offer this kid more money than Duke was offering him is willing to offer him that so that they can utilize his name, image, and likeness to play football for their university. Now, what's interesting about something that you said earlier, though, is that, he is not an employee of Duke,
That's what I'm
right?
saying.
And Amani, one of the things that I've seen show up in my Instagram feed, and I have people send this to me all the time because, as a financial planner, I guess they think that I would be interested in this. And, I just had somebody recently send to me this idea that Caleb Williams had coming out of college, right? The quarterback for the Bears. He wanted the NFL to pay him his salary as an
Oh yeah,
independent contractor. So pay
yeah, yeah,
him pay him as an LLC. And
yeah.
I was trying to explain to someone that is maybe the most idiotic idea that I've ever heard
Why?
in sports. And
Why?
again, I've never seen anything that documents that was a real thing. So I've never seen
No,
Caleb.
no. He definitely wanted to be paid as an LLC and wanted to pay the taxes by himself.
Yeah. So first off, LLC is not a tax, does not have any tax considerations, right? He wants to be taxed as an independent contractor. LLC is a legal entity. It is not. It has no tax consequences, right? Now, an LLC
Okay.
taxed as an S corp can have some different tax considerations. But the reason, Amani, that I would think it would be idiotic, and I think this is a challenge that some of these players in college are going to face because they are essentially 1099 independent contractors, I think the first thing that you have to remember about that type of arrangement is that number one, as a 1099 employee, you can write off your business expenses.
Yes.
But good luck trying to find a bunch of business expenses to offset your NFL income as an NFL player. The NFL pays for everything. Your club pays for everything. Maybe you have like off-season housing, training costs, expenses that you could write off, but it's not going to be nearly enough to offset your salary, especially when now as a 1099 independent contractor, you have to pay both sides of payroll tax. So if I'm an employee of a company, right, I pay 7.65% of my payroll taxes. My employer pays 7.65% of my payroll taxes. As a 1099 independent contractor, I am both employee and employer, which means that now I have to pay the full 15.3% in taxes, right? Which is kind of a big deal, right? So if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to have enough business expenses to offset my income, you got to have enough to offset the extra 7.65% in payroll taxes that you have to pay. The other part of it, and again, this is one of the other reasons why I think it was like not a great idea, is that this, if you're 1099, there's no tax withholding. And so now if there's no tax withholding, they're not withholding federal taxes or state taxes from my paycheck. Now I have to pay quarterly estimated taxes. Now I want you to think about, as an NFL player, having to write a quarterly estimated tax payment to the federal government and the jock tax. The jock tax, NFL players pay state taxes in every state that they play in. So not only do I have to pay quarterly estimated taxes to the federal government, I also now have to send a quarterly tax payment to every state that I pay in. I have to do that myself because they're not withholding that from my check. And then last but not least, I think what makes it also not a great idea, and you just hit on this with these college players, the CBA and the union covers employees. If you're a 1099 independent contractor, you're not covered by the union and the CBA. You also probably don't have benefits. You don't get the NFL health insurance, the 401k plan. It just didn't make any sense to me. But everybody sends this to me and like, oh, this is so brilliant. It's not a brilliant idea. That is not standing on business. So again, Amani, when you think about these college players who are not employees but 1099 businesses, there's just so much more for them to think about. And especially now that they're opening themselves up to actual litigation by signing these NIL deals and contracts. I mean, that's a lot for a 19-year-old to think about.
Yeah, and the thing about one of the things that we always talk about is these agents, and the amount of money that these agents are getting. I mean, so if you have an NFL contract, I think back in our day, the maximum was, when I first got in, it was 5, then it went down to 3% that you can take of the overall deal.
That's it.
I think it's even lower now, but these guys are taking 20% of the NIL money. That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
That to me is criminal, first of all. Second of all, and now they have a lot of actual work and know-how in terms of the tax situations that we were talking about, in terms of setting up these deals to where, they're going to have to consult lawyers, and I would imagine it'd be a good idea for them to be lawyers so that they can look over these deals pretty quickly and cut the expense so they can keep more of the money. But they need to have access to financial people. They need to have access to accountants and all this stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot that these agents are being tasked to do, and to be paid 20% is just I can't even fathom.
Yeah. No, I think there's people that are probably taking advantage of some of these kids, and because there's no regulation, it's an easy target. And I think when you look at the Darien Mensah situation, and we talked about the Damon Williams situation from Washington, right? So Washington came to an agreement with Damon Williams, the quarterback for University of Washington. They came to an agreement in principle, and then, a couple of days later, he's like, yo, I'm out. I'm in the transfer portal, because he found somebody else that was going to give him even more money. And then Washington said, not so fast. We'll sue you. Right. And Damon Williams was like, just kidding. I'm coming back to Washington. I don't know if you remember that, right? But
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
I think the difference is that Washington really didn't have any legal standing. Just the threat of a lawsuit forced Damon Williams to go back. Duke, on the other hand, actually has a contract and legal standing in a lawsuit, and they're probably gonna win. Now, to your point, they can't prevent the kid from enrolling in another university ultimately, unless they can prove irreparable harm, right? And again, I'm not an attorney, I don't know legal jargon, but essentially, it's kind of like I tell people in my business, like if you have enough money to solve a problem, then you don't have a problem. And what Duke would have to prove is that there is no amount of money that could solve the problem of Darien Mensah leaving them and going to another university. There is an amount of money. So essentially what I think is going to happen is there will be a settlement at some point. And whether Darien Mensah's new university pays that settlement to Duke, because there is not irreparable harm, obviously, right? Because Miami could pay him a $10 million check. What I think Duke is looking to accomplish, though, is to make sure that if this kid is going to leave, like they're not going to be able to prevent him from leaving. They want to make sure they get at least compensated for the fact that he's leaving and breaching his contract, which I think is.
I would argue.
Which I think
I
is
would
brilliant.
argue that there is irreparable damage because I know there are players on that defense that they could not keep because of the deal that they inked with Mensah. So
Yeah.
there is an argument in that case.
But the school's not
go
going
on.
bankrupt, though. Like, I mean, so
No, but their program
but in legal
is not going is
but
is-
in legal
their program
terms
isn't going to be as competitive.
but in legal terms, that like the court doesn't care about how competitive Duke's football team is, right? Irreparable harm would mean that the football program is now going to be defunct and never come back because this kid is leaving. That would be the definition of irreparable harm, not you going 2-12 next year, right? Like they don't care about that. Or the university is going to go bankrupt because Darien Mensah left, which obviously we know is not the case. So,
Not gonna happen.
so technically, Duke needs to.
Well, we
settle.
got to define what damage is.
Yeah,
You know.
exactly.
So then this whole case seems to be doesn't have much weight because the only thing that they're mad at is that they don't have their quarterback,
and they want to get
knowing
paid.
that they're what?
And Duke should get paid for that, though. We locked the kid into a contract, and if somebody is stealing our quarterback away who has a contract, then they got to pay us out, right? I think Duke.
But isn't there something in the contract for them to have to pay him out?
I don't know that
There's a buyout.
I don't know that there's a buyout because I don't know that Duke needs the lawsuit if there's an actual buyout. If there's if there's a clause in the contract that says that someone can come in and buy you out and you can go to another school, there would be no point of a lawsuit. I think there is no buyout in this contract, which has been reported. And essentially this is Duke saying, all right, we have you locked in until January 2020, whatever, end of 2026,
26.
right?
Yeah.
And
20. No, I'm sorry, 2020. Yeah, it is 26.
yeah, 27,
No.
January 27,
27,
right?
yeah, 27.
So if somebody else comes in and takes you away, they got to pay us. And I think this is Duke getting a guarantee that they're going to get compensated for Darien Mensah leaving. Because otherwise, there's nothing that says that Miami, if they were legally able to take this kid away, there's nothing that says, if there's no buyout, there's nothing that says that Miami owes Duke anything.
Okay.
I think this is Duke staking their claim and saying, all right, hey, you guys can have them, but you're going to pay us $8, $9, $10 million, whatever the settlement works out to be. But we're going to continue to follow this story because I'm fascinated by it, because this is the test case. I don't think Damon Williams wanted to be the test case, which is why bro was like, yo, forget about it. I'll just go back to Washington and ball. Darien Mensah, unfortunately, is the test case. And I think, sadly, we're going to see a lot more of this, unless there are some guardrails and some leadership put around the transfer portal and NIL like we talked about last week. To your point now, right, the NCAA just approved that now college programs can have corporate sponsorship and logos on their jerseys, right? Corporate sponsors and logos on jerseys. So you can wear a patch on your jersey. So, I mean, this is, I think, going to change the game for what it looks like from a revenue sharing standpoint with players, because now, corporations can come in and specifically advertise on a player's jersey. So I guess Amani, for you, right? You played at University of Michigan. I mean, how would you feel having like a Kellogg's logo on your jersey while you were playing? I mean, would that be cool?
It's so funny because my wife is from Europe, and in Europe, it's something that's there's logos on all the jerseys.
Even
You
like
know,
little Pop Warner jersey, right?
well, I mean, when I was little, I played for the Rockets, and we were, I think we were sponsored by Hispanic University, HB, whatever. We had stuff on our jerseys when I was a little kid, so it doesn't really matter. It's just the sponsors of the league. I get that, but now you're in a situation where do the players get a cut of that? Where does the money go? That's what I'm worried about. I always worry about where it goes, you know?
Yes, that's what I'm worried about too, because I think that now that the House has approved the revenue sharing deal, right? Because of that House settlement that we talked about last week, right? So now
Mhm,
schools can pay players directly. Now, here's
mhm.
the thing you got to think about. The fact that these schools now are going to be able to pay players directly, you have to really honestly conceptualize how much money is has been funneled through these universities through college athletics for years.
Years.
For years.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
Like up to this point, the kids were only getting NIL money, and they didn't even touch any of the revenue sharing. Now they're starting to do the revenue sharing, and these kids are making 10, 15, maybe even, $20 million a year. But
Because I got to
yeah,
say, bro, the NIL part of it and the NIL collectives, that was the thing that pissed me off the most about all this NIL thing, because it was like the NCAA said, all right, the players can now get paid, but guess who's not going to pay them? The NCAA is not going to pay them, right? We're not paying them, and
yeah, yeah.
and your college can't pay you, and ESPN can't pay you directly because of the media money. Who's going to pay you? You know who's going to pay you? The fans are going to pay you. And now, as a fan, I got to not only buy season tickets, I got to give money to the university, but now I also have to freaking give money to the collective so I don't lose my quarterback. And I just thought that was whack. So I do love the fact now that, we have this house settlement and schools can actually share revenue, because now that I think that's going to take some of the burden off of the fans who are already shouldering the burden for these programs in the first place, right?
I went up to Joe Skiba works at XPads right now, right?
Okay, yeah.
And he said, and so they
Formerly
make
equipment manager for the Giants. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
So he says all of these teams have contracts with different shoulder pad companies, right?
Yeah.
But everybody knows that X pads are known as some of the best pads out there. So what these players are doing is they're going out, paying and using the NIL money to buy the pads that they want. So they're rocking around these X pads that used to be Impact when we were playing.
Yeah.
And so like these shoulder pad companies that sponsor or give money to these schools or give discounts to these schools, they're getting cut out because the players are like, look, I don't care about, you got a thing with Rydell or Douglas or whatever. I want to wear these X pads because they're better.
Yeah.
So what's to say about the shoes? What's to say about the helmets? What's to say about the gloves? I mean, these are all things that were just baked into college revenue, and now that might be getting blown up as well.
Yeah, that's gonna get blown up. You're reminding me of like back when Reebok essentially sold their half their company to the NFL to be the official NFL equipment licensing deal. And I remember my rookie year at the Giants, bro. I got my agent negotiated a Reebok contract for me, and I was like, bro, I want a Nike deal. Right? Like, but I was an undrafted free agent. I'm not getting a Nike deal right out of the gate. So I had
Yeah.
a Reebok deal. So all my family got Allen Iverson the questions, like, or the answers, the shoes. I gave
Mm.
everybody the answers for Christmas that year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I got some playing time and I got a Nike deal the next year. So I was bro. That was like I had made it, bro. But you do bring up a good point. It's like how are they going to reconcile a player getting their own individual shoe deal, but it might be a Nike school? What if I'm a kid at Oregon, right? And Oregon obviously is team Nike all the way.
all the way.
But I'm Dante Moore, and somebody and Adidas comes in and they want to give me, $10 million to wear Adidas sneakers on the field. Still, my jersey's going to have the Nike logo on it, right?
Yeah,
Because I
yeah,
think that licensing agreement is with the school, the university, but they may not be able to control what I wear on my feet, especially if I've got an NIL deal with Adidas.
yeah. I mean, they have traditionally to this point, it's been a no con, just whatever. You get the whole school and that's it. Now, I mean, they're losing so much control because they've gotten control. These colleges got control that they never should have had in the first place.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's going to be very interesting. This whole thing is going to shake out, and it's just going to start looking like the NFL junior,
yeah.
and then there's going to be the big.
Well, what I was gonna make the point that I was gonna make though, Amani, is that I think that this selling of the real estate on the jerseys, where I think that's coming into play, is that these universities are like, oh crap, like having to pay these players a revenue share is truly cutting into our bottom line. How do we make up for that? Oh, if I can get, Ford Motor Company to advertise on our jerseys at the University of Michigan, if I can get a Ford Motor patch and they're paying us X amount of dollars a year, because we're already selling the naming rights to the stadiums, we're already
Hmm.
putting logos on the football field. The basically the last frontier is the jersey. And if I'm a university, I can get an extra $10 million a year because Ford Motor Company wants to put their logo on my jersey. Then that helps us to offset the impact of the revenue share that we're now having to give our players to the tune of $22 million a year. And
But they already have that though. You are like the Jordan signs, the Adidas, all that stuff. That is a logo patch that was not on.
but those are
That's
those
on
are
this,
apparel agreements though. So those are different, right? So
but it's still.
that's
But
an
I
apparel
understand.
deal.
But it's still a real estate on the uniform that's being sold,
Totally.
regardless of what it is.
No.
So
But
you're just
but
saying add like another one.
yeah, no, they're going to add another one, right? Like you can be a corporate sponsor that does not provide apparel to the university and
Hmm.
advertise on that jersey, right?
I like
Obviously,
it.
Jordan brand is apparel, Nike is apparel, Adidas is apparel. I guess Oregon's going to have two Nike logos, right? Because Nike's going to take up all of it. But
Yeah.
but it's apparel, and now this is going to be non-apparel. And here's where I think the evening of the playing field comes into play. And I do want to get your opinion on this, Amani, because we've talked about how you believe there is the Big Ten has now surpassed the SEC. You believe that college
Absolutely.
football has a monopoly, and you said the monopoly belongs with the Big Ten, right? And
Absolutely.
and I think part of it is, obviously people have speculated for years that there might have been some underhanded things happening in the SEC. Players are getting paid, under the table. And now that we have NIL and we have revenue share, now there's an even playing field where, you know what? In the Big Ten, we can also pay players, which is why at Indiana we win the national championship, right? Because
Hmm. Hmm.
we were able to pay and build a roster and compete with the other blue bloods in college football. Well, for an SEC school now, who now is having to compete against those major media markets that you talked about last week, who might have corporate CEOs who've been donating money, now it gives the Alabamas, the Ole Misses, the Mississippi States, gives them an opportunity to get additional revenue now legally by selling the real estate on the jersey. I think that's going to help them to sort of even the playing field against some of these Big Ten schools, right? And the meme that we've seen float around is that like the Southern car dealer isn't running college football anymore, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
but now these schools like Arkansas doesn't have to rely on the guy who runs the local car dealership to give money. Now they can sell that real estate to Toyota, right? And put a Toyota
Yeah.
patch on Arkansas's jersey. And it
Yeah.
totally evens the playing field for them relative to some of these more resourced, from a donor perspective, some of these more resource schools that they're competing against.
I think they're fighting a losing battle because ultimately, when you're looking at the SEC, I mean, when you're looking at advertisers, their first and foremost, what they want is eyeballs. Where are the people? Where can we make the biggest impact? You're going to tell me that somebody is going to, like a corporation is going to go into a business, go into a meeting and say, we need to spend X amount of dollars every year on Ole Miss, as opposed to we're going to spend X amount of dollars on a Maryland
Well, no,
or
hang on, Amani. I got to tell you, bro. I got to tell you, the SEC is popular. So I know you're an SEC hater. I'm a low key SEC hater, but I appreciate SEC football because I love all college football. And I will tell you, man, SEC football is popular. Period.
Yeah, because it's propped up a I don't want to say below a comparable league. They're comparable to every other of the other league. I don't think there's way more talent in the SEC. I don't think there's way more talent in the Big Ten. I don't think the talent pool is the issue, but they try to make it that. They try to make it as such. Oh, well, the SEC, the reason why we do so bad is because we beat each other up, and no other conference beats themselves up during going through the league.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't buy that.
I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't buy that either. I mean, there's parity and there's all conferences beat each other up because those are the teams you play the most. So it's asinine to say we beat each other up. But I will tell you the SEC is really, really popular, man. I mean, you go to, and I'll give you an example, man. University of South Carolina, by all accounts, they had a terrible football season this year, right? I think they not even bowl eligible. Stadium packed every single Saturday. Packed. And if you go to any school in the Big Ten that is not a playoff contender, but not even bowl eligible, you look at Purdue, there's nobody watching Purdue football, bro. I'm sorry.
Bro, they're packed.
Purdue?
Bro, I played in the Big Ten. It is packed.
You played in the Big Ten 30 years ago, my guy.
It doesn't matter. It is packed. Wisconsin, packed. Iowa, packed. Nebraska, forget about it. Packed. All packed. Illinois.
Northwestern.
They're building a new stadium in Northwestern. Let me one second. This is the reason why ESPN lost the Big Ten, because they didn't realize that there are a lot of people in the Midwest that live and breathe their schools. And in the Big Ten wanted more of their games on TV. And the SEC was like, no, you're good. So the Big Ten said, hey, look, we got to do what we got to do. They made the Big Ten network. The rest is history. Now, we've been shoved down our throat how great the SEC is for the last 20 years.
Pause.
The whole BCS, which has definitely been BS, they shoved in all these SEC teams. And because you see them on in the BCS championship and all these bowl games for the last, from the 2000s to, I don't know when it ended in maybe 20 to the playoffs started.
Yeah.
It was dominated by by the SEC.
Yeah.
That's because they voted these teams in,
Right. Yeah.
Now it's actually playing out on the field. And since it's been playing out on the field, I don't know if the SEC has been dominant as the Big Ten has been.
Yeah. That's a good
Because I remember the first Big Ten first playoff was when Ohio State won. The first playoff a couple years back. So this is not something that people from the North have not known to be fact for a long time. Big Ten has always done well in bowl games. They've always been ahead of the curve in bowl games. There's years where we went, darn near undefeated in these bowl games over years for a long period of time. But the SEC always had an excuse. Hey, the SEC has some phenomenal teams. They have LSU, Alabama, Georgia recently, Tennessee used to be really good. They have some great teams, but you take away a couple of those teams and they're not anywhere near as dominant as they claim to be. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And by the way, I mean, here's the thing that I think makes this story about the corporate sponsorships. Here's where I think it gets very, very interesting because there are financial institutions like the Wall Street Journal and other publications who have basically tried to say, here are the most valuable college football programs. They try to evaluate these programs basically like they are run like professional franchises, right? So they're looking at revenue, cash flow, brand strength, media leverage, and other economic drivers, especially now in the NIL era. So Amani, if I were to ask you, which college football program has the highest valuation in the country right now, who would you say that would be?
Texas.
Yeah. Texas is valuated at $2.2 billion, right?
Yeah.
Who would you say is second? I'm curious.
Michigan.
No, I mean, of course, I knew that Homer pick was going to come in there at some point, but no, it is estimated that Texas
Notre Dame?
A&M is second at 1.6 billion, Ohio State at 1.55 billion, LSU at 1.54 billion, Georgia 1.47, Michigan 1.46, Notre Dame, Penn State, Alabama, Nebraska. So that's the top 10, and Nebraska estimated to be worth about $1.24 billion. And what,
Yeah.
and again, what's crazy about this to me is that though that top 10, they're more valuable than the most valuable NHL franchise. Right?
Oh, well, that's.
Like if you think
I
about
mean,
it,
it's the college football is the second most popular sport in the country.
yeah, it's
So it goes
crazy.
NFL, college, and then it goes. I think the next one is Major League Baseball or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, but from a team valuation standpoint, like the average team value in the NFL is 5.7 billion. Now the top value team is at 9 billion. I think that's probably the Dallas Cowboys, right? But if I'm looking at averages, the average team value is 5.7 billion for the NFL, 4 billion for the NBA, and 2.4 billion for Major League Baseball. The top 10 in college football is valued at 1.5 billion dollars, right?
Yeah.
So when you think about it from that perspective, it goes back to what I said earlier. I mean, I want you to think about how much money has been coming into these universities through just college football, not even counting basketball, just college football, and how for years they didn't have to share any of that revenue with players, right? And now they're gonna.
You wonder where that money went.
Where did it go? All right, I'll tell you where it went. I mean, it went to teacher salaries. It went to building facilities and building the infrastructure and these brands that continue to make even more money.
Let's just say you make $1 billion. Let's just say you have a billion. You're worth $1 billion. Could you spend $100 million on a university? Like, could you spend like 10% of it every year a portion of it every year to improve everything? At some point in time, there's going to be nothing left to improve.
When's the last
Don't you
time you
think?
went to University of Michigan?
I went there last year, 2 years ago. 2
Yeah,
years ago.
I mean, what do you think about the locker room and the facilities, and not just the locker room and
It's
facilities?
absurd.
It's absurd, and not only
They have
that,
two.
even
Go
for
ahead.
students, it's like a country club, right? Not
Yeah.
even just for the athletes. You look at the facilities. I'm like, a lot of these kids are in for a rude awakening, bro, when they get to the real world, because I mean, it's insane what these kids have on campus now, and a lot of it is driven by these sports and the revenue that's driven by sports.
Yeah, I remember when I went to Michigan, every teacher got a raise every year because of the football team, which I think is a great way to use some of that revenue to make sure that your university does better, improve, and all that stuff. That's a great way to do that. No problem. No doubt about it. So I feel like college is a better way to spread out the money
Yeah.
in terms of, actually helping a lot of people. When in the NFL, it just goes into, it goes to the owner's pocket.
Yeah.
Like literally, it goes into the owner's pockets.
Perfect segue to our last topic for Standing on Business, episode 2. I do want to talk about the NFL playoffs this year, right? Because by all accounts, I mean, the NFL is just printing money right now with these playoffs. I mean, it is an absolute cash cow. And Amani, I think a lot of our listeners would be surprised to understand how players are compensated in the playoffs versus how they're compensated throughout the year, right? And I know you're pretty passionate about this as someone who was probably pretty highly compensated when you were playing football. And so I guess to give some background, right? If I am a player and I sign a contract, and I'm going to use easy math, right? I got to pull out my calculator because none of it's easy math for me. But let's say if I have a contract that pays me $1 million, well, I think a lot of people would be surprised to know that they basically divide that $1 million by 18 weeks in a season, right? 17 games plus a bye week, and they pay me every single week $55,555 every single week, right? And by the
Mm,
way, when I was playing, I don't think I had direct deposit. So literally, the dude used to walk through the locker room after the game and hand me a check. Like it
mm.
was the most. Yeah, I don't know if you remember that. You probably had direct deposit with the amount of your checks, all those
No,
zeros.
but it doesn't matter. They still give you. They used to put it on your. They used to put it like you used to walk on the plane after your it'd be on your desk on your stool right
Yes.
after the game.
Yeah. You're exactly right. So even if it was direct deposited, they still gave you a check stub to say, here's what was deposited into your account. Yeah, absolutely. That's what I remember because Strahan showed me his check one time and I was like, how you got so many zeros on there? But anyway, so $55,555 a week. Now, if I go to the playoffs, right? Now I make a per playoff game check, right? It's not based on my contract. And if I were making $300,000 per game and I get to the playoffs, everybody makes the exact same amount of money. So the highest paid person on the team and the lowest paid person on the team get the exact same payment per playoff game. Do you think that comes as a surprise for our audience and our listeners, Amani? And how do you feel about that as someone who probably made a lot more than you were paid in the playoffs per game?
I made. It's like I remember talking to Howard Cross, and we were going to the playoffs for the first time in a long time, and he's like, I'm taking a pay cut to go to the playoffs."
That's insane.
It's because put it this way, let's use like say you're not making $1 million a year if you're in the NFL if you're playing, right? If you're $1 million in the year, you're pretty much on that bottom 10%
Yeah.
that is really worried about making it next week. And in that contract, as soon as you get cut, or if you get cut between a week, you get your money stops right then and there. So it's not like you can keep on getting paid. Once you get cut, it's null and void, and there's your thank you. No more checks are coming in. So you have to play and make the team every week,
Yeah.
every day during the week.
Yeah,
So
you know what's funny about that? I just want to digress for a second. So, as an undrafted free agent, right, I was always waiting for someone to come and tell me after training camp was over that I made the team. No one ever tells you that you made the team. You're just still there. You know what I'm saying? Because in week 3 they might cut you, right? If somebody else
yeah,
hits the waiver wire and they want to replace you, so they never say congrats, Amani, you made the team. You're just still there.
yeah, yeah. We're just okay. Well, we signed you a contract. You're going to play for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it is. Oh, I just remember I played with the guy who I played with in Michigan, and he ended up transferring to a different school,
Yeah.
and I ended up on the Giants, and he ended up being on the Giants too, and he thought he was going to make the team, and he ended up getting cut.
Mm,
And so I remember it was the last cut day. For some reason, I wanted to get to the stadium early and just get some workout in and just kind of get ready for the day. And I'm sitting in my car, and this big dude, like he's probably about 6'6", probably like 280 pounds, crying with snot coming out his nose, tears all
yeah.
running. Not the nice like like Denzel one tear cry. I'm talking like little kids. Somebody stole my lunch. Snobber knockers, snot all coming down. And he's knocking on my window, and he's like, "Hey, everybody, hey, Kelly," and I'm just like,
I don't mean to laugh, bro. I don't mean to laugh, but man, that poor guy.
what? I'm like, really? Like, what can I do? Like, we
Yeah.
have no say in any of this stuff, right? Like,
Yeah.
you can't do anything. Like,
No, it's
once they
brutal
make a
though.
decision, and I'll never forget that. And I don't think he ever ended up playing in the league after that. But it was like that was his career. That was it.
Well, you
And
never got
he,
cut, right? Like, I mean, you when you left the NFL, you left on your own accord, right? Like, you just
no,
retired.
no, I got. Well, the Giants didn't renew my contract ended,
Yeah.
and the Giants brought me in, and they were like, "Thank you for what you did for the program." I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna go somewhere else." So I went to Kansas City, and I pulled my hamstring in
Yeah.
training camp. And I wasn't doing that. I mean, I played well enough that I felt like I was one of the better receivers on that team.
Yeah.
But once I was going into my 14th year,
Yeah.
and I was making league minimum, I think I was making 900,000. I made 900,000, and at that time, that was 3 other players, and I didn't play special teams.
Yeah.
So like, that was not like I would
Bro.
have to start and be like a number one or number two contributor on that team
Yeah.
for me to stay on, and the politics of it just doesn't allow those types
It's
of
not even
things.
the politics, it's the money of it, because to your point, there is those minimums for whatever year you are in the league. And
Yeah,
I think that's what kind of happened to me when I went to the Jets. It was like
yeah,
I'm a fourth year guy. They got to pay me X amount of dollars. They could pay 3 rookies what they would have to pay me. And I want to be like, yo, I'll play for the rookie minimum, bro. Like, but you
yeah, yeah.
but you can't say that. Like, I mean, you have to play collectively bargained what a fourth year player was going to make. That's what they would have to pay me.
Mhm.
And, to your point, it's like the financials don't add up. While for a GM trying to manage a salary cap, Joyce got to go. Right.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Unless you stand out to the point where they can't do without you. But the fact that they brought me in during training camp means that I was not really in their plans. They were just kind of like, let's see what happens.
I didn't
And
know
then me
you went
getting
to
hurt,
Kansas City, by the way. Who was the
yeah, it
quarterback there
was
when you went there?
Matt Castle.
Okay, yeah, interesting. I had no idea, bro. This is the first time. I'm today years old when I learned this.
Yeah. No, it was a good experience because it's when I was like, I remember being in the locker room on the preseason games. I'm looking around, I'm wearing all the red jerseys and all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, what am I doing here? You know what I mean?
What
Like
am
I
I
really
doing?
felt like, what am I doing here?
Yeah,
And and I was like, well, let's just take it on as another adventure. And I I'm glad that I never played on that team.
yeah,
It's easy for me to say it now, but I'm definitely glad. But getting back to the point, um, it is not a good deal for a player to go to the playoffs. What players want to do
yeah.
is they want to be the first team out of the playoffs. Because if you're the first team out, you're like, oh, maybe we can run it back. They'll keep everybody, and we'll have one more shot, right?
Right.
Because if you're too bad, then they're going to fire people. You
Yes.
want them to be like, oh man, wait till next year. We're going to get X and Y and Z back, and we're going to be because you don't want the change. Because the change in the NFL is, once
Oh.
you change the head coach, once
Oh.
you change the GM, once you change anything,
Yeah.
you almost got to reprove yourself to that person.
Yeah.
And if they're not rocking with you, it's like, you were there when Coughlin first came,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like,
He was not a fan of 5'6" running backs.
no, no. And,
Yeah.
and I felt like I mean, you were one of the quickest players I've ever seen. Seriously,
Thanks, man.
in terms of like lateral movement and athletic
Yeah.
ability. If you were like about 3 inches taller, you'd have been a problem. Seriously. But
Yeah.
going
Totally.
to the playoffs is, first of all, because you don't make them much money. You're taking a huge pay cut.
Let me push back though. Like, I mean, for players, the goal is to win the Super Bowl every year, right? And to win the Super Bowl, you got to go to the playoffs. So I understand, like, if I am, a top paid quarterback and I was making $600,000 a week, and now in the first round, if I have to play in that wild card game, you know what every player makes in the wild card game? Every player, all 53 players on the roster, no matter what their contract says, every player makes $50,500.
Yeah,
So I went from making $600,000 per game to now making $50,500 to play a game. And that kind of
yeah.
stinks, but it's a necessary evil because my goal is to get to the Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl championship.
No, I 100% understand and agree with you on that. But if you're really looking at it through a business, if you're staying on business, right?
Yes.
You just want to play as many games and get the maximum amount of money for every game you get and play as many years as you possibly can in the NFL.
But let me ask you
Because then all
this
the
though.
pension and all that stuff starts adding up.
And I agree. I think where I have a hard part with this, the way that I think I look at it a little differently and
Hmm.
then maybe you look at it, right? And I think it has to do with how they pay you because they pay you every single week. I think people and players equate that income with per game performance, right?
Mm,
And I don't think that's what it is. I think it's a contract for you to play from the beginning of the season to the end of the season, whether it involves playoffs or not. They just
mm.
divide it by 18 weeks and pay you out per week as if you're being paid for that game, when in reality, they're paying you to play for the franchise. So if you reframe it that way, right? then the playoff money is bonus money. It's bonus money.
It's not a bonus money if you have to play the game.
No, but you have to play the game per your contract. So
No,
if they're paying me $5 million this year, that $5 million is not to play 17 games. That $5 million is for me to play 17 games plus playoff games. Now, to your point, I
I don't
guess
agree with that.
I get the same 5 million whether I make the playoffs or not, right? And I see what you're saying, but you're equating it to a game, and I just don't know that I don't know that I see it that way. But maybe it's because the one playoff game that I played, I made more money than my rookie contract. I was like, yo, I'm getting more money in this playoff game. And then I'm looking
Really?
at Strahan, and it's like he's getting way less money because he got the same
Yeah.
paycheck I got.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So it's like, I feel like to make it worth players' while and to make it seem fair, because the thing about it is, you could have, put it this way, we had a player on our team, a kicker, Brad DeLuiso, great kicker. And he was making a good amount of money every year. I think it was like $1 million kicker. I can't remember. It was back in 2000. Anyway, so we go to the playoffs. We go, he does well. We go to the Super Bowl. For some reason, he has a bad Super Bowl game and kicks a couple balls out of bounds or something, didn't play as he normally does. People don't look at your entire season. They look at how you play in these playoff games and they judge your career off of that.
Yeah.
So he never played in the league again. They cut him the year after, and he never played in the league because he had that one bad game in the playoffs. So I feel like for the risk reward that you get from being on the national stage and changing people's minds about who you are as a player, you got to you got to at least get paid as much as you get paid for a regular game. Why are you going to go to the playoffs and take a pay cut? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, I guess again, if you look at it as a per game payment, then you're right. If you look at it as a bonus, then if I go to the Super Bowl and I win the Super Bowl, I make another $338,000 for that season. Which, if I'm a middle of the road player on that roster, that's a big deal to make an extra 350 grand. If I'm a highly compensated player on that roster, it's like, yo, I still won the Super Bowl. And that's going to mean probably more to me as a brand off the field and endorsements and all the other opportunities that come along with being a Super Bowl champion, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get compensated in other ways. So I get your point. But
the owners,
yeah,
go ahead. Sorry to make that.
Yeah, you're right. The owners are making
But
the
the
same amount of
owners,
money per game.
they're not making the same amount of money per game. They're doubling up. They're booming more money, more money. So it's not like, it's just not fair.
Yeah,
right?
That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah.
If I'm making, let's do even numbers, right? So let's say I'm making $18 million a year. So I'm getting $1 million a game. This is just to make it easy, right?
Right.
17 weeks, 17 games, 18 weeks. I'm making $1 million a game. This is not doing taxes or anything, right?
Right.
So if I pay an extra game, why would I play for anything less than the $1 million that I'm supposed to get for each game?
Yeah. No, you're getting 50,000, my guy, in the first round.
And then if I go all the way to the Super Bowl, I'm getting an extra
338,000.
So I'm getting, I'm paying. They're paying me for an extra quarter of football, right?
Yeah.
Or quarter and a half of football, and I'm playing 4 extra games.
And you know what? Honestly, when you put it that way, because to your point, and I led with this, the NFL playoffs this year is an absolute cash cow, right? I mean, they are printing money, and they're still getting the same ad revenue, right? For each game. Yeah, exactly. They're getting more ad revenue. The ticket gates are outrageous for these games, and the players get paid less. So I do think there probably needs to be some sort of revenue share for the players, man, because that money is not trickling down to the locker room. The players are not getting it.
No, there is no incentive for a player to win a Super Bowl. None. Just the fact that you can get that ring. And you know what? The ring is great. And let me back up.
Because you won a Super Bowl.
I won a Super Bowl. So I may be a little tainted, right? Because I won one, right? I won one and I lost one, right? I've been to 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
But I understand the economics of it, right? And I understand that every time I went to the playoffs, I was taking a pay cut for the majority of my time in my career. And, you know, why are the players taking a pay cut when the owners aren't?
But would you trade that Super Bowl win though?
I had for what?
I mean, you made
If
no.
would I trade all my? I would. You know what I would trade? I would
Yeah.
trade all of the playoff games that I've ever played for another year in the NFL.
Okay, for another season.
Yes. So you know what they
Wow.
should do?
Yeah.
You know what they should do? They should because you're when you go to the playoffs, you go into the next year, right?
Yeah.
Next calendar year. So if they extended the benefits, so like it's 3 years and 3 games, right?
Yeah.
So what if your 3 games added on to the being in the playoffs? That would be great because then players would have an incentive and then every 3 games
Wow.
you get an extra year added on. That would be great. Go to the playoffs, get
Yeah.
3 games, win 3 games, and then you're like, okay, I'm vested for another year. That would be an incentive for somebody to want to go to the Super Bowl because you're getting
Yeah.
another year invested.
Yeah, that is actually a bar. Like that is, I mean, I need you to get involved in the union so we can collectively bargain for that. And again, just for our listeners, to be a vested NFL veteran, you need to play 2 years and 3 games. So you need what's called 3 accredited seasons. An accredited season is only 3 games. So if you play 2 full seasons and then 3 games in your third season, you are a vested NFL veteran. And for each year that you get an accredited season, meaning you play 3 additional games, you get another year of vesting, which increases your pension and some of the other benefits, right?
Yeah.
And to your point, if I played 3 games in the playoffs, I should get an extra year of vesting. I think that would be incredible. And to your point, that is a financial incentive for the players because now their pension increases, their death benefits for their families increase, like everything increases at that point.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's fair because I mean, of course, I'm a player, I think it's fair, but it's also a real incentive to
Yeah.
where like, okay, I'll take a pay cut to get an extra year in my, then you can bargain that. Like, how much
Yeah.
do you actually pay them? Because for right now, you just play for the Super Bowl ring. Like, look, I love the Super Bowl ring and it's great and all, but like,
Come on. I mean, but come on though. You wouldn't trade that Super Bowl win for I mean, you like would you say I don't want to play in the playoffs because I'm going to make less money, so I'd sacrifice that Super Bowl ring for not having to play those extra 4 games? I'm not
I
buying
mean, I
that.
think we're going a little extreme here, right? Where
I'm
that's
not
a little extreme.
exactly, but that's what you're saying. You're saying I got to
No,
take
I'm
this pay
saying like
cut.
you are taking a pay cut and you're getting evaluated more in those playoffs. You could have a great season and have a bad playoff, and people think you suck.
Yeah. No, that's true. No, it's a good
So,
point.
like, there needs to be some sort more compensation for the players because they're putting it all on the line.
Yeah.
Like, I remember I played I played in the Super Bowl, my first Super Bowl. I had a hurt ankle, right? Like, I couldn't run. I could barely run. I had to get shot up, whatever, before the game.
Yeah.
But like and I think that hurt my perception because I didn't play very well in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And that hurt people thought, oh, well, he must not be that good, all this stuff. And I'm just like, yo, I was on one leg.
Yeah. Now, I mean, as you say that, I think about one of the greatest football alums from my university, James Madison, Scott Norwood. Scott Norwood, had
Baller.
he had a Pro Bowl season the year he missed that field goal. And anybody ever remembers when you think Scott Norwood is wide right or wide left or whatever it was, right? So
Yeah.
anyway, all right, Amani, we're going long. I agree with you. I do think that the NFL should share some of the revenue that they're getting from the playoffs with the players. I do agree that it is a pay cut, but I also agree that there is some value in making it to the Super Bowl that probably extends beyond the field in terms of compensation for a lot of these players, right? So, all right, let's transition to our standing on business moment for the week. Listen, for me, I got to say, man, my standing on business moment this week goes to Duke University, bro. I think the fact that they had the gall and by the way, I feel bad saying this because they're suing a kid, but I also believe that if you sign a contract, bro, it's got to mean something. And the thing that I've been concerned about with the NIL and the transfer portal and all these things is that we're teaching, I think, terrible lessons to kids and we're not forcing them to have to learn how to deal with adversity and stick out maybe a bad situation or maybe put more thought into a decision because now you can just undo that decision and go do something else next year if it doesn't work out. And so I feel like we're just teaching horrible lessons to these kids. And, you know, I got to say, Duke is standing on business. You know, you sign a contract, you got to honor that contract. And if you don't, there are real world grown up ramifications for breach of contract. So Duke is standing on business.
Yeah,
I know it's hard taking the organization side of it, right? Because you always want to be with the player. And I wish Darian Mensah well. Like, I think that kid is phenomenal. But you signed a contract.
I totally disagree, because ever since I got in the NFL, you think, oh, I signed a contract, I'm going to be on the team. Nope, you got to make the team.
Yeah. But that's the NFL.
Signing a contract isn't
that's the NFL.
The end all be all. It's like you have to sign the right contract.
No. That was the NFL though. Amani, and this kid signed an NIL deal with Duke University, and they were going to pay him $8 million whether he balled out or not. It was a legally binding contract. He was going to get $8 million. So bad example.
No, I get it. Well, allegedly, we don't know how much.
We don't know, but we'll talk about NFL contracts on a future episode. But man, I really want to thank everybody for rocking with us this week, man. This is a lot of fun. I am excited about this journey that we're going on. And you know, Amani, they say the biggest improvement happens between week 1 and week 2. And I think, Amani, this show was a blast. Now, don't forget to hit that like button. So if you're watching this on YouTube right now, hit the like button and comment and let us know where you agree or disagree with us. And I promise you, we'll get into the comments with you and have some additional debate. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify. And last but not least, follow us on social media. We are on Instagram at SOBHQ on Instagram and on Twitter. And, you know, this has been a blast, man. Amani, any parting shots before we go?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram. I just got my thing up again at atumor81.
Let's go. Amani's back on Instagram.
I'm back.
You're such a boomer, bro. You're such a boomer.
Yeah, you know, it's you say that, and I just can't get into the whole thing where I have, like, if somebody texts me, I don't have to text you back right now. I'll get back to you. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, the best thing ever that happened to me is I discovered Do Not Disturb. I mean, I put my phone on Do Not Disturb all the time, because that lets you know if you text me and I don't text you right away, I was on D&D. But you can follow me on Instagram at DelvinJ33. And this has been another episode of Standing on Business. Appreciate y'all rocking with us, man. Keep standing on business. Let's go.